On August 13, 2025, a simmering trade dispute between the United States and Canada erupts into a full-blown crisis, sending shockwaves across North America. What began as a series of tense negotiations and escalating rhetoric suddenly transforms into a tangible threat as the fragile relationship between these two neighbors is put to the ultimate test. At the heart of the crisis lies the land bridge, the only overland route connecting the lower 48 states to Alaska, a lifeline that snakes through the vast Canadian wilderness. This corridor is not just a road, it's a vital artery for commerce, travel, and the daily lives of thousands of Alaskans. In response to renewed and aggressive tariff threats from the Trump administration, Canada, led by the provincial governments of British Columbia and Yukon, swiftly moves to restrict access to this crucial passage. New checkpoints, stricter inspections, and even temporary closures are imposed, effectively tightening the noose on Alaska's supply chain. The result is immediate and dramatic. A choke point that brings the flow of goods to a near standstill, rattling Alaska's fragile economy. Local businesses face shortages, prices spike, and uncertainty spreads, sparking outrage in Washington and panic among Alaskan residents. President Trump's aggressive tariff threats, justified under the banner of national security and claims of unfair trade practices, are met with swift and calculated Canadian retaliation. Ottawa imposes new tariffs and enacts targeted measures specifically designed to disrupt Alaska's vital supply routes, escalating the standoff. This is no longer just a dispute over tariffs. It has become a clash of economic philosophies and national pride. Canada, leveraging its unique geography, turns the land itself into a powerful bargaining chip, weaponizing access to Alaska as a means of pushing back against U.S. pressure. The timing could not be more fraught. President Trump's actions come just as he prepares for a controversial and high-stakes summit with Vladimir Putin in Alaska, adding another layer of complexity and uncertainty to an already volatile situation. The world watches anxiously as allies grow uneasy, and the international atmosphere becomes increasingly tense. The crisis threatens to spill over into broader diplomatic relations, with global leaders questioning the stability of long-standing alliances. Canada's bold response signals a deeper, more troubling concern, a shifting U.S. foreign policy that leaves traditional partners feeling exposed and uncertain about the future. The ripple effects are felt far beyond North America. The world's longest peaceful border, once a symbol of friendship and cooperation, is now transformed into a front line in a high-stakes economic conflict, one that could reshape the balance of power and trust between nations for years to come. Amid the trade crisis, President Trump announces a high-profile summit with Vladimir Putin in Alaska, an unusual and provocative choice of venue. The summit's stated aim to negotiate an end to the war in Ukraine, possibly with Ukrainian President Zelensky present. Trump hints at territorial swaps, raising alarm among Ukraine and its allies, as Zelensky firmly rejects any loss of Ukrainian land. Skepticism abounds. Many see Putin's participation as a stalling tactic, not a genuine peace effort. The summit's timing, alongside aggressive moves against Canada, leaves U.S. allies questioning American priorities and reliability. Alaska, now the stage for both diplomatic theater and economic crisis, finds itself at the center of global attention. Canada responds to U.S. tariffs with a coordinated, multi-layered strategy. Ottawa imposes retaliatory tariffs targeting key U.S. sectors, signaling it won't back down. British Columbia and Yukon escalate by targeting Alaska's supply chain, leveraging their control over the only land route north. Premier David Eby halts direct purchases of American goods and bans certain U.S. products in government stores. Yukon follows suit, blocking American liquor and restricting U.S. firms from bidding on contracts. These creative measures use procurement and regulation as economic weapons, amplifying the impact. The unified federal-provincial front maximizes pressure on Washington, showing that Canada's response is both strategic and deeply rooted. The message: a trade war with Canada will have real, widespread consequences for the U.S. British Columbia's boldest move: imposing steep tolls on all U.S.-bound trucks heading to Alaska. New legislation fast-tracks these fees, turning the Alaska Highway into a costly choke point. Shipping costs to Alaska could rise by hundreds of dollars per truck, with the burden passed to consumers. Business leaders warn of higher prices, supply delays, and logistical chaos, especially dangerous in Alaska's harsh climate. Premier Eby frames the tolls as a necessary counter to U.S. economic aggression, using infrastructure as leverage. The highways, once symbols of cooperation, become tools of international brinkmanship. Yukon joins British Columbia, halting American liquor purchases and blocking U.S. firms from government contracts. These moves, though symbolic, hit targeted sectors and reinforce the Canadian front. By controlling the entire land route to Alaska, Yukon and BC ensure there's no way around the blockade. The seamless cooperation between provinces and territory amplifies the pressure on Alaska's supply chain. This is a rare display of subnational governments shaping national foreign policy. The message to Washington resistance to U.S. tariffs is a national conviction, not just Ottawa's policy. Canada's decentralized system proves powerful in crisis, with local leaders taking decisive action. The blockade is now airtight, and the economic pain for Alaska is unavoidable. The economic tolls are immediate and severe. Each day, up to 400 trucks make the critical journey across the Canada-US border, carrying everything from food and fuel to essential supplies for Alaskan communities and industries. With the imposition of new border fees, Alaska now faces an added burden of $150,000 to $200,000 every single day. A cost that quickly adds up and strains the state's already challenging logistics. Over the course of a year, these extra expenses balloon to more than $50 million, a staggering figure that ripples through the entire Alaskan economy. Ultimately, these costs are passed down the line, hitting Alaskan businesses and everyday consumers who now face higher prices on goods and services. Alaska's vital oil and gas industry, which depends on Canadian routes to transport heavy equipment and critical supplies, is especially vulnerable. Delays at the border and rising transportation costs threaten to disrupt production schedules, slow down projects, and increase operational expenses. This not only jeopardizes oil output, but also puts state revenue at risk, potentially impacting public services and jobs. Meanwhile, U.S. firms are losing access to lucrative contracts in Yukon and British Columbia as cross-border business becomes more complicated and costly. The fallout is felt in Alaska and the Pacific Northwest, where jobs are at risk and local economies face uncertainty as businesses struggle to adapt. The cumulative effect is being described as an economic siege, with higher prices, lost business opportunities, and mounting inflation putting pressure on families and small businesses alike. Economists at the University of Alaska warn that if the crisis continues, it could push the state's inflation rate up by as much as 2 percentage points, making life even more expensive for everyone. Alaska now finds itself increasingly isolated, bearing the brunt of a trade war it never asked for, and facing an uncertain economic future. Alaska's leaders react with alarm and outrage. Governor Dunleavy calls the tolls a hostile act, demanding federal intervention and direct talks with Canadian officials. Alaska's congressional delegation blasts the Trump administration's tariff strategy, warning it failed to anticipate Canada's targeted retaliation. Business groups warn of closures and job losses as shipping costs soar. The Alaska Trucking Association predicts driver shortages and supply chain chaos. Alaskan officials now find themselves criticizing both Washington and Ottawa, caught in the crossfire. The state's frustration and sense of isolation grow as the crisis deepens. The Alaska Passage crisis exposes the fragility of U.S. Canada ties, which were once celebrated as a model of seamless cooperation and mutual trust. For decades, the border between these two nations symbolized not just geographic proximity, but a deep partnership built on shared values, open trade, and diplomatic goodwill. Canada's creative retaliation in this dispute demonstrates that even smaller partners can leverage their unique geography and employ asymmetric tactics to push back against U.S. pressure. This move highlights how power dynamics in North America are shifting, and that Canada is willing to assert its interests when challenged. The dispute sets a significant precedent for future trade conflicts, signaling to the world that even close allies will not passively accept American protectionism. Instead, they may respond forcefully, using economic and political tools to defend their own interests. Ironically, the Trump administration's policies, intended to benefit the U.S. heartland, have instead inflicted economic pain on Alaska, revealing deep internal divisions within the United States itself. This unintended consequence has sparked debate about the true costs and benefits of protectionist measures. The crisis forces both nations to confront a difficult question: how can national policy truly serve the diverse and sometimes conflicting interests of different regions? The answer may require a new approach to diplomacy and domestic policy. The real damage, however, may be diplomatic. Trust, once broken between allies, is notoriously hard to restore. Years of cooperation can be undermined by a single crisis, leaving scars that linger long after the immediate dispute is resolved. The image of Canada blockading Alaska is a powerful and unsettling symbol of a partnership under severe strain. It captures the attention of both nations and the world, raising questions about the future of cross-border relations. The era of automatic North American cooperation may be coming to an end, replaced by a new reality of guarded, transactional relations. As both countries reassess their priorities, the path forward remains uncertain, and the stakes for future collaboration have never been higher. The Alaska Passage crisis marks a turning point for North America. What began as tariff threats has spiraled into a full-blown economic and diplomatic standoff, with Alaska caught in the middle. Canada's united response weaponized geography, exposing Alaska's vulnerability and fracturing trust. The Trump-Putin summit in Alaska only adds to the confusion and tension. The crisis challenges the foundation of U.S. Canada relations, setting a precedent for future disputes. As leaders scramble for solutions, the question remains: can North America rebuild trust and cooperation, or is a new era of strategic rivalry here to stay? The answer will shape the continent's future for years to come.